Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Nourisher podcast. Do you ever feel like you're consuming more information than ever, but somehow you feel less sure about what to think? Yeah, me too. It's almost like you've got news pinging at you, social media's pulling you in 100 different directions, your group chat's blowing up about something, and then at the end of the day, you're just kind of, I don't know, overwhelmed. Yeah. Absolutely been there, done that. Literally me 5 minutes ago. And here's the thing, a lot of that information is designed to tell us what to feel before we've even really had a chance to think about it, which is exactly why what we're talking about today matters so much right now. It's about trusting yourself enough to ask questions, about not letting other people or the algorithm or whoever is loudest in the room do your thinking for you. That skill actually has a name, and it's called critical thinking. And the good news is it's something that you can develop, or if life's just been a lot lately, something that you can absolutely strengthen. My guest today is Cheryle Cooper. She is a writer, editor, and a woman who homeschooled her daughters right here in Amarillo with this very value at the center of it all. She wanted to raise girls who were not afraid to ask questions, who didn't just take things at face value, who could look at what was happening around them and actually think it through. And y'all, it worked. Her daughters are out in the world now doing exactly that. I met Cheryle through our local writers group, and from the moment I met her, I just knew that I had to get her on the podcast. So come on in, open your mind, and come have this conversation with us. I think you're going to walk away with something really, really useful today. Hello, Cheryle. Thank you for being on the Nourisher podcast today. How are you?
I am doing great, and I am just honored to talk with you today and just share and hopefully, be encouraging to the listeners.
Absolutely. We met at the writers group, right?
Yes, exactly. And so I was so impressed. You have a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm. I just love people like that. So yes, we met at the writers group and I thought, oh man, this would be great.
Yes. Okay. I'm glad it comes across that way because sometimes I'm hanging on by a thread, but I really do try to maintain the energy.
You know what? Oh my gosh, Taylor, that's me. I think I'm really hard on myself, seriously. And I don't think, even teaching, I admit to being a proud nerd. So I am that. But sometimes I'm very hard on myself. But you definitely have the energy, the enthusiasm. So it is just really an honor to be here.
Well, thank you. Let's start off by getting to know you, who is Cheryle. So tell us a little bit about your work as a writer and an editor. What really draws you to that world?
I'll start with the writer first because it goes way back in time, really. I was just a kid of 7 years old in second grade, and I had a wonderful teacher, Mrs. Pettiboni, who encouraged me and it was an amazing thing. And what it was is that back at that time, we had this free period to do whatever we wanted to do. And so what I wanted to do was, and I didn't think anything of it, put together a little story about farm animals. I remember that very well. Stapled it together, didn't they? And Mrs. Pettiboni was so impressed. She put me in the center. The desks were kind of in a square shape kind of formation. So I was right in the center. And she's like, Cheryle wrote this story. We're going to hear it. That moment was so pivotal because that particular teacher, that adult at that time, the confidence, she just really encouraged me. And that really sparked my love for writing, to answer the question of that. And with the editing part of it, I'm somebody who loves clarity, who loves, things sounding better. If it could come across a little bit cleaner, I've honed that area in my life as well. And it was one of the things that I could do from home when I had my second child, she's over 20, she's going to be 26 in August. So it's been a long time when I started my business, but it was one of those things where writing and editing, that skill that I feel like the Lord put in my heart, it was something I could do from home. But I love the world of words and communication and connection. That is so key to me. So that's kind of what drew me in terms of being, a writer and then later an editor. A really inspirational, influential teacher who probably didn't even realize that she really changed my life in that way. Because at that time, kids were like seen and seen and not heard, but she really sparked that in me. And so from there, I've always enjoyed writing, always enjoyed, communicating.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
super special. I love when we have educators or role models and people in our lives that may not realize the impact that they're having just by doing their job
Yes.
because it sets us on our path for the rest of our lives. And now here you are pursuing, your love and your dream all because of that one teacher. So that's amazing.
Yes, 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 yes.
Walk us through what your day to day looks like. Are you currently working on your own writing? I know you said you do editing. So are you editing other people's work or kind of doing both?
I kinda do both, and actually I have 3 things, but as far as my own writing, which praise the Lord, I've had a lot of success here lately. I've had short stories that have won contests, and I have a short story that's in Backroads Literary Review that's in the spring edition, and then with Texas High Plains Writers, we've got the, Route 66. My goal for my book is to do a compilation of short stories. Like it's going to be a book, but it's going to be all of my short stories pulled together. So I'm currently working on that. And I've had beta readers. And in fact, I'm going to be joining a critique group to kind of help you hone that. So that's something that I'm doing in my business, expert editing. I have ads and I have ways in which people can get in touch with me. I help them with resumes. I help them with term papers. I've worked with nurses, doctors. I've worked with engineers. So basically, my role is to help their technical writing needs, whatever that is. And to be honest, Kayla, has slowed down. I hate to say it because of AI. A lot of people are
Mm.
online and just getting their writing help in that regard. But what I provide, and I still do, it's a one-on-one. They meet at my house, just so that I can make sure I'm understanding what they need. I want to make sure that I'm, providing the best professional editing service that I can provide. So it's just sort of one-on-one. Of course, that's gonna, that does cost, and people are always looking to, get something, without the cost to it and all of that. And then the third thing is as an instructor. I've been at AC. I've been an adjunct government instructor of all things with all this going on. So a lot of my day to day is very well now in the instructor world. The lectures, the grading, all of that is pretty straightforward. The main stay at this point is the educating part or the instructor part. That part is pretty steady, but the writing and editing that could come and go, and then with my own writing, I'm writing every day. In fact, I have a deadline I'm going to be trying to meet for June 30th, and so that part's exciting. Yes, that's kind of a mixed up day in the life of Cheryl.
Yeah, it sounds like you're very busy, but all very good things. And at first, I was kind of thinking when you mentioned that you were teaching at AC, I said, oh, and then you said government. So I thought maybe that's completely not what I had in mind for your third job.
Yeah, yeah. My baccalaureate is in political science and government, and I have a master's degree in public administration. So I was just using, you have to use what you kind of a thing. But I bet if I wanted to do English, hopefully I would be able to do that.
I'm sure you would be fantastic. And I know that just in our, preliminary conversations that you were mentioning that you homeschooled both of your daughters. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yes.
What was the philosophy behind that? I know that's a really big decision. I don't have kids personally, but I know my sister does, and that's been a conversation that our family's been having about the pros and cons.
Right,
So,
right.
what was the philosophy behind that decision for your family specifically?
The main thing, and as I thought about, that whole foundation is as a Christian, as a believer, I wanted for my daughters to be able to have like the Bible study at home. My faith was a huge foundation. There's a little bit of an age gap between the older daughter and the younger daughter. There's about a 5-year age gap. when we made the decision for me to not be working, because I had worked at Pantex before the younger daughter, before Faith was born, the decision was made that I was going to be home because it's very challenging for a mom to, work outside the home. And I was doing all that full time. And I didn't want to do that with the second. But with the older child, we weren't able to kind of make the cost of a private school and sent her to public school. First grade wasn't bad, second grade. But I tell you what, at 3rd grade, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's 3rd grade, 4th grade, but, she just started to have areas where there was bullying, areas where there was, problems. And so I felt like that was a kind of a distracting thing happening. There were things that were kind of coming into conflict with beliefs, etcetera. So that was where that started. And so by 4th grade, that's when we, made that decision to go ahead and homeschool. It is a big decision and it was scary, but it's very empowering in that we were able to have a lot of efficiency of time. And they still got dance lessons, art lessons, music. There was like the best of both worlds. There's a lot of wonderful public school teachers. I've tutored in the public school systems, but it's a long day. It's a long day for kids. It's a long day away from family. But I know people have different circumstances. So my heart goes out to the circumstances that are out there. It's just that we were able to make that decision. And I think that, especially with my younger daughter, when I see the type of person she is and her passion that she has for learning and all of this, it was a really good one. Both daughters are very bright. My oldest, she got her baccalaureate at Maryland University. So a lot of things that were instilled were really positive things. But there are a lot of things in public school that I bet even parents that are in there are concerned about. So to say all of it in a nice, neat nutshell, the the real push was wanting to have that home Bible influence and then also make the best out of our time. And plus, I think I have a teacher heart. I was enjoying instilling in them a love for learning. I think that's what should be the case. And I do think it should be the youngster should have that voice to say, you know what, I like this or I'd like to try that. And sometimes in public school, it's a one size fits all kind of situation. It's not as easy to be as creative as you'd like to be.
Yeah, and you mentioned a lot of things have changed, obviously. I mean, even since I was in school, lots and lots I feel like has changed. And then, of course, we have the influence of COVID and technology and things
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
So I think one thing that you and I had talked about previously is just maybe not having as many critical thinking skills as
right.
we should, especially going into young adulthood. We leave high school and then we have to make all of these big life decisions.
Exactly.
And sometimes I never felt like I was equipped to make those decisions at 18. I may have been in a rebellious stage at 18. So
That was my older daughter. Oh dear.
yes. Yeah. So, when you think about critical thinking, I know that was very important to you when we talked, and that you instilled that in your daughters. So, how did you teach that? Like, how was it part of your personal curriculum at home?
Well, it wasn't like a textbook kind of thing. It was more of an approach to learning. For example, where it would mostly come out are in the social sciences, like when we were doing history and that type of thing. And the biggest thing is to be able to ask questions, salient questions, be able to analyze what's in front of you. It was more problem solving. What I wanted my daughters to be able to do is to not kind of off-source their thinking. Think for themselves in the sense of ask questions. Don't take things at face value. Because I tell you, Kayla, for me as a woman, kind of navigating through friendships and relationships and all of these kinds of things and taking things at face value, people aren't always honest. You know what I'm saying? And so there's
Yeah.
been a lot of hurt through lies and all of this and it has made me a little bit more, cynical, especially with the news, but to get it back to the homeschooling is where we have conversation. What did you think about this? How did that information makes sense because a lot of times I was always looking at, does this pass like the smell test? You know what I mean? And so, like even in my own classroom with my college students, I like to present ways for them to look at other sides of things and to be able to ask questions. I always tell them I'm a learning advocate. I want to be a facilitator of I'm not the person with all the answers. And just, guys, this is the way it is. So the way we worked it in our homeschool setting is when there was information. It's always important to ask questions. Not saying always being cynical, but just ask questions because a lot is happening and being thrown at us. And we don't want to be people that can be manipulated easily and fearful all the time. We want to be steady. You know what? We want to be stable. And so when we can take a pause, take a deep breath and say, you know what? Let me ask about that, or this doesn't make sense. That's how we incorporated it in our schooling. So it was more of a way of life in our school, in our homeschool, more so than like, a book on logic and a book on, philosophy, et cetera, et cetera. It was incorporated throughout how we think and how we learn and how we apply that learning.
And I'm sure you're seeing it now that your daughters are adults and they're, in their professional lives and they're also very engaged in their community. You said one of your daughters she's not necessarily in the legal system, but she's taken an interest in that. And I think it's kind of hard not to, especially when you get involved in community work. But when you watch her engage with these real world issues, what are you seeing within her that is really connecting back to that critical thinking that you cultivated when they were growing up?
Oh, I tell you, it's funny. The key thing that I remember, because like I say, I was home with them and I had my little business and everything, and I still let them do different activities and stuff. And the thing about the younger daughter, Faith, she was that person that asked questions. Whenever we had like field trips and we would go to the museum, she would be the first person raising her hand. So I love that she had like this curiosity for life. That was the thing growing up that put that in her. 'Cause it's funny, Kayla, she calls us 20s, me, because she really, a lot of things that she saw me doing and things that I, taught them, she is using that. But as a kid, going back, even if it's not a question, she would have a comment like, that's really neat, or how did they stack this up? She had a healthy, natural curiosity. And I think people need to be curious. It's not being nosy, it's being curious. Like, oh man, this is happening, that's happening. We want to be alive in our community. And so she has like taken that and seen different things that are happening and is a part of asking those questions. But yes, that's what I see in her is that natural curiosity, that excitement for life and things around her and wanting to make sure she's understanding it in a good positive way.
And I love that you said earlier at the end of a lesson or the end of a conversation, you would ask your girls, how did you feel about that? What do you think about that? So, if there are any moms out there listening, what is one thing that they can start doing in order to instill this curiosity and this love of learning in their own children?
Right. Well, the thing that I think that every mom, whether they're homeschooling or not, they can start with what does your son or daughter really like to do? Start with that individual kid. Maybe he or she likes gardening. Maybe they like cooking and open up that world for them. Children like to be asked, what do you like? They're so used to, especially I hate to say it in public school, they're just told so many things. It's nice to get down on their level and say, what do you like to do? What can we do that we can explore what you are enjoying doing? There's a movement, even when I say unschooling, people think that it's going to be just chaos and people are watching TV all day in their jammies. It is not that. It's a student centered approach because, after all, when we grow up, we are going to be responsible for our learning. And so let your child tell you, hey, you know what? I'd like to learn how to do some drafting or whatever. So that's a small move that can be a big thing because maybe that will be the start of them getting involved in organizations. Maybe it also builds leadership, leadership skills. You don't have to be like the boss to be a leader, an individual person who is aware and who cares and who has passion for what they enjoy. That can be leadership, if you know how to communicate that. So I would say to them, start with your youngster. Ask them what they like. I know that when I was a kid, a lot of times you kind of did things because that's what mama wanted you to do. No, no shade on that timing, but that's where I would start because that's the simplest thing. They could surprise you. It's just a wonderful thing to stop for a minute and they say, you know what? I would love to be a chef. So I like to cook, or whatever it is. So yeah, they can start there.
Absolutely. I think it's easy for us to be like, I love tennis, so my kid's gonna love tennis. And I
Exactly.
love to ride horses, so my kid's gonna like to ride horses. But I think it is important for, when I was little, my mom let me try everything. We tried soccer, we tried track, we tried cheer, we tried basketball. And then it was like, I knew what I did and didn't like. And then I was able to make my decisions, going into high school from there. So, yes, great, great advice.
And Kayla, it's so funny. Your mom sounds like, because what I did, because now that you said that about especially gymnastics, Faith, she was so good at gymnastics. And I felt like the older daughter, everything that she got into, she seemed to excel. They had like a kids in business thing. So, and that's why I wanted to be home because, not everybody, I just have a lot of empathy for families right now. It's a tough time. So I'm just saying I had that opportunity and I'm grateful because I was there and it allowed them to do a lot of fun things that they could explore because like you say, those things can be the start to something like a career. I love what you contributed in that talk because that's what I did. That's what I did with the girls and hopefully help them get launched to where they're at right now.
Okay, so you've given us really great advice and perspective on homeschooling, your children and that experience and instilling critical thinking skills in them. But I want to transition into us as adults because I
Right.
think that's something that we are all struggling with, whether it's ourselves or people around us. So if we're trying to think about what critical thinking actually looks like, I want to flip that and ask you, what does it look like when we're not thinking critically?
I hate to say this, I think a lot of people probably are on the not side. What that looks like to me is someone who takes information at face value. Like they don't do a deeper dive. They don't ask questions. They don't consider alternatives, other things that could be a part of that. They don't maybe consider or think through consequences. They sort of outsource their responsibility to dig deeper and to get answers and make sure that they're thinking for themselves. And I know a lot of times critical thinking, people think that maybe you're a person is negative or a conspiracy theorist or what have you. But when you're not critically thinking, I don't think you're giving yourself the best advantage to know what's going on in your community, caring about it, caring. It's important. If somebody doesn't ever ask you questions, say, hey, Kaylor, how do you, it seems like they don't really care. Maybe that's a little bit harsh, but not looking at alternatives and not doing a deeper dive, that's what the opposite is in my thinking.
Sure. And I don't think, we're doing it intentionally. Like
Right.
we've mentioned before, technology has just made it extremely hard for us to, we look at one source and it's like, I have my answer. This is what Chat GPT or
Right,
some
right.
AI overview said. And this is exactly, that's the information I needed. We need that quick fix of
Right.
information. And I think it does take time, effort, and energy
Yes, it does.
to do the research and
Right.
to go and find alternative explanations and ask questions and engage in conversations where we may not understand.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I think it's not necessarily always intentional. It's becoming more difficult, I
it
think.
is. It's such faster way to get information. So it feels overloading, and that may be why people are shutting down just a touch because it could be too much. and it could be very difficult to take the time to parse through things. But sometimes there's a not so great alternative if you don't take that time. There's just certain things you can't not take your time on. For example, if you're dealing with an illness, you're going to stop and figure out what is going on. It's one of those things where the Lord and his sovereignty things happen, and we're forced to sort of say, okay, I've got to stop now. I've got to think about it. But you're right. We're overwhelmed with a lot of information, a lot of data and everything else. It's got to be a balance of which things are a passion to me and which things I don't need to stress about.
Absolutely. And you said it was harsh, but I really don't think it is. If people aren't asking me questions about my day, even just life, right? If we're having lunch and you never ask me a question about something that I said about my life, then I'm going to be like, you
Exactly.
really don't
I
care.
I know it. I know it, Kayla, and I tell you, and I'll just say this really quick. He ended up having to relocate to another town. But he was such a great friend because he was such a great listener. And he was a great listener and he cared. He asked questions. He would remember things. And that just shows love. You know what I'm saying? When people ask you, hey, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And it should be a balance of things. So when people walk around and they're not, and they may not mean to do it intentional, but that's why we kind of got to get away from our phones a little bit and get more human interaction. That's why I'm just loving this.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. We definitely practice not having our phones. When we get home, we don't really have our phones around. I couldn't tell you where mine is in the house usually, unless I'm working. So
Right,
I
right.
I think we've got to disconnect for a little bit for sure.
Disconnect. Yes, yes, indeed. I love it. Yes, we need to connect at the right time and disconnect when we need to. So that's very good.
Okay, Cheryl. So if someone comes to you and says, I don't know what to think about this thing that's happening in my community or an issue that's happening in my community, what is the first question that you would tell them to ask themselves in order to start this critical thinking process?
Right. The first thing I would ask them when they say they don't know what to think is to take a pause. That's the first thing. Take a deep breath and then to look at what you've been told. What I mean by that is look at the facts that are involved on the table so that you can piece through and kind of scrutinize those things. Because sometimes when we don't know what to think, it's because maybe we are a little bit bombarded with what has happened. So if we stop and look at pieces, so we're not confused, so we're not scared, so we're not manipulated, think about what have they told you so far? What are you thinking about that you've heard so far? Like you don't have to always have an answer, but you can say, you know what? I was told A, B, and C. Let me think about those pieces and take a step back. And sometimes smaller chunks will help you a little bit in getting the bigger picture, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. And I love that you said, this is what I think about this so far with what I've been given, because it's okay. I wish people knew it was okay to change your
Yes,
stance or your opinion on something, whatever that is,
exactly.
after more information has
More
been presented.
information. That's right. See, it's funny because you don't have to jump into being someone who is like completely all the way into like being a skeptic and just totally, but you can say, This is what I know so far. Let me, and take a pause. I guess we're so ready to like, I got to have an answer. I've got to have an opinion. And that's not
Mhm.
true because you can end up making the wrong, or I shouldn't say wrong, but you could be incorrect in something that you jumped quickly. So I would tell them, let's look at these smaller chunks and see where that leads us. Because that's how I deal with, like, they said that there was a fire here. This has happened. This is what we've known so far. And then you can start to say, well, let's see, how did that start? Because you might have a beginning point and you say, something's not adding up too great here. Or, oh, you know what? I was initially skeptical on that, or I was really and now I see what all happened. So you do need the
Mhm.
pieces. You have to be somewhat of a detective. That's why I like true crime also, Kayla. I should say. I should
I
say
love true crime, yes.
I'm so bad at Dateline in 48 hours. But I have learned a lot from those investigators because they listen. They see is there consistency. When people start to veer off from stories, and I love it, and I've learned, and I've put that in my writing. So yeah, but start small. You don't have to have the whole deal. You don't have to get overwhelmed. Look at what you've been told so far because maybe you don't want to jump to conclusions, but at the same time, you don't want to take it like for face value. I know I say that over and over. It's just that you want to be trusting, but people do lie and sources are not correct.
And I think it's really important to remember that it's okay to have differing opinions and that it's okay to stand on the other side of an issue in your community. But I again really appreciate this conversation because I think it reminds us that once we do the work, we do the research, we ask the right questions,
Right,
then we come to our own personal belief and stance in whatever the issue is.
right.
What do you think the connection between thinking critically and being a good neighbor, friend, or community member? Like, where's the connection in those two things?
Right, right. Well, I tell you, specifically in terms of a neighbor and a critical thinking piece, back in 23, the electrical people were making a switch to smart meters. And so I wanted to at least have my neighbors know that they had options, they have a choice because nobody likes to have stuff pushed on them. A lot of times things are told us, this is good, this is and all I was trying to do was make sure that, guys, here's the information on smart meters. Here's, what you can do. And also honoring their choice. That's another thing. As a neighbor, you can say, hey, guys, this is happening. Don't know if you heard about it. These are some information you might want to look at. So I like to do it in love, in a loving, empathetic, neighborly way. But for me personally, there are many of us who are it's called electromagnetic field EMF. We can be very sensitive to that. In other words, that's why I have to put my phone away. We can get headaches, we can get dizzy. So the smart meter issue was a really personal one to me, and I even spoke at the city council about all of these things that were going on. So what I did, I put a package together, I put it nicely in the mail. Hey guys, this is what they're doing. This is the switch that they're doing. Just so you know, you have an option. And some people went with their smart meters. Some people, said, I'm going to have them come. Honor the fact that people do have differences, and they do. But as a good neighbor, the critical thinking approach is giving them the information that they may not have even known about. And as it turns out, my neighbor across the street, we have become such dear friends because of that. And he read over it. He came across the street, we talked, and we have been just lovely friends since, and pray together because he had a health issue. It is just a wonderful way to connect. The
Mhm.
connection is people and it's caring. So from even a, community perspective, hey guys, this is what's going on. Not you should think this way because they're going to do such and such, but have the humility to let people, make those choices, but have the love to put that information out there that you care. Hey guys, I care about you. This is what's coming down the pike. And this is what you want to do. And some neighbors, they say, I don't want a smart meter. And but we don't want to judge somebody if they do. I know that I had a lot of reasons to get more involved in it, and that was a area of critical thinking that I could actually like a how do you say real world a way of spreading that information. So yeah.
Yes, and I'm sure a packet would make a much bigger difference than going on rants on Facebook.
Yes, that's exactly what I put a nice packet together. I said, "Here's this is what it is." And that's why, like I say, Stephen, he was so impressed, came over, and it's just his wife has EMF sensitivity. And so I was telling him about there are ways to decrease. all of the currency and you plug it in. And he was saying that she was having less headaches, sleeping better, because really it's a big problem for people. They had a documentary on it. And that's why I was concerned. I just didn't want it to be, we have to have this on our house. This is our home and we should still have a voice in it. So it's better than getting on Facebook and ranting. It's doing something. It's being proactive. Like I tell my girls, be proactive. So yeah.
Yes, and like you said, you present all the information that you know, that you've researched, and then at the end of the day, some people are going to make a decision that's different than yours, and
Yes,
that's okay, but at least they had, at least a friend. If they weren't thinking critically themselves, they at least had a friend who did critical thinking for them, presented the facts, and then they made their decision.
exactly. Love it.
So, yes. So, thank you, Cheryl, for being that for your neighbors. I'm sure they may have not appreciated it, but I know obviously there are a few who
Yep.
definitely
There were
did.
so that was good. Hey, if you can help one person, that's awesome. So yeah.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so if there's somebody who is listening to this episode today, what is one thing that you hope that they walk away with from this conversation?
What I want them to walk away with is please don't let someone else do your thinking for you. Don't offshore or outsource your thinking. I know it's going to take time, but that is the most critical thing. Don't just take everything in at face value. Be proactive. Be proactive in your thinking. And I'm sure there's individuals that have a passion about something. And so I would like them to walk away with, you know what, I'm responsible. Even though, I know this was told me, but don't let others do your thinking for you. Think for yourself. Think about the issue for yourself.
I love that. That is such great advice, and I think it ties together everything that we've talked about today, and I think it's gonna really help some people. I hope at least that someone's hearing this and at least one person is affected by it, but I guarantee you it'll be more than one for sure. Okay, Cheryl. So I always wrap up the podcast with two questions
Okay.
for everyone. So the first question is, what is one thing that most people may not know about Cheryl?
Okay. I tell you what, I think that the thing they probably don't think is that I do have a strong introverted side. I think I present with a lot of energy and a lot of bubble and and I do. But I have a side that's a loner that likes to power down and I draw strength from quiet time. That might be the writer in me so I can concentrate and all of this. So I'm not always that, especially being an instructor, I'm not always, that high energy. I really do benefit from a quieter side. And they may not know that about me, that I do have that introvert in me and I need it. I need that balance in order to write and read and just kind of just strengthen my core, as it were, and everything. So, yeah, the loner side, I don't think they know that always so much.
Okay. See, I want to do a podcast about like stereotypes on introverts and extroverts
Yeah,
and how
yeah,
they each can pull from, from each other.
exactly.
Because I'm the same way. Like you said at the beginning, you're like, you had so much energy. And I was like, I was probably extremely drained. I had to do it. But being alone sometimes for extroverted who seem like extroverted people, sometimes being alone is the only way that I can fully recharge and get
Exactly.
to
Oh
that
my
point.
gosh, I totally relate.
So second question is, who are 3 women who inspire you?
Okay. Well, I had to put my mom at the top of the list because mom and I have gone through ups and downs, and we are in a very good place right now. I tell you though, I she inspires me because she's always been a hard worker. She didn't have as much time with us. We were like little scrappers, kind of, we had to kind of do things, but she's a hard worker. She's a somebody that loves children, has a passion for family. So I would have to have her at the top of the list. Another person, she's a friend of mine. I absolutely love her. Her name is Peggy Hall, and she inspires me because she's a person that does deep dives. She's a person that has not taken things at face value. She's probably considered very controversial. She has her own little YouTube and all these kinds of things. But I have learned so much from her. I'm not saying that I agree with every single, but she inspires me because she's very articulate and she does a lot of deep dives, and it's helped me, to think and ask questions in a very good and healthy way. And the last person, and she would probably be stunned for me to have her on. Her name is Melissa. She's my flute teacher. She's a young lady, young mama, but she is so sweet and so kind, and she's been so patient with me. When you're an adult learner of an instrument, that's a totally different world than when you're starting out in 5th grade, 6th grade. But she's kind, she's patient, she's awfully talented. And I think with her, it just inspires me to be better, to play better, to learn that instrument. I was like, I want Melissa to be proud, proud of me, kind of a thing. So I would say I would put her on the list as well. And she's a music person, flute player, and she's my instructor. And I feel like I've learned and grown a lot from her. I'm really inspired by her as well. So I love that I have young friends and old friends. It's just a wonderful mixture of these ladies that inspire me.
Absolutely. And, we can get inspiration from it's so hard to pick 3.
Yes.
So for all of Cheryl's friends and family listening, and it's not that you didn't make the list, it's just I only give her 3.
Right. Yes, because I think about even my younger daughter who just had, some struggles, and she has come such a long way, Kayla. I'm so proud of her, and she just persevered. It is hard being, 20 something, 30 something. These days are very difficult, lots coming at us and everything, and things being more expensive. It's just hard. So I really have a lot of inspiration for her for staying steady, staying the course, having a passion, having things. So yeah, it's hard to pick 3, but I would say those would be, you know, my core 3, at least for that. And love sis, love, I have lots of really wonderful friends, but yeah.
Tell us where we can learn more about you and maybe look out for your work. If you have, if you want us to friend you on social media or however you'd like us to follow
Right.
along, please tell us more.
Well, I tell you what, I deactivated my Facebook, but I do have an Instagram. And my goal for that Instagram was to have a writer's platform of what I'm doing, what I'm writing. I do have other things, picture cat. I'm a crazy cat lady. I love animals. So I'm on LinkedIn and I'm on Instagram. And my goal is to, like I just posted about our Route 66 anthology on there. And I like to just keep people up to date on different things that I'm writing so they can, Cheryle Cooper. It should be very easy. It is public, but I'm not on Facebook. Had to get
Sure.
off of that. But yeah, I'd love for them to follow me and join. It would be just so great. I'd love to build that audience up. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, Cheryl, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about this critical thinking skill that so many of us, can find value in developing or strengthening. So I appreciate you. I'm so glad we got to connect and just appreciate the fact that you're willing to come on and give
Yes.
us your
Oh,
thoughts.
well, thank you, Kayla. I'm really honored. I think this is what you presented at the writers meeting. It just was really, really inspirational. And you're absolutely right. It is a way to kind of showcase and share what you have. And that's a way of loving people, I think. I think it is. I think it's a way of caring about them. So yeah.
Thank you again to Cheryl for coming on and sharing her thoughts with us. I hope you're walking away feeling a little bit more equipped and a little bit more confident to trust your own thinking. And hey, if this episode hit home for you, the best thing that you can do is share it. Send it to a friend, your sister, your coworker, whoever came to mind while you were listening. That is how we grow this community and how we make sure the right people find us when they need it the most. Make sure you're following us on social media. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the newsletter. That is where I share things that don't always make it into the episodes. I will link Cheryl's published writings and I give a little shout out to our sponsors. And I really, really would love and appreciate if you were able to leave us a review. It goes such such a long way, takes 2 minutes, and it is helping more women find their way here. So thank you genuinely for being a part of this growing community. It does not go unnoticed, and I do not take it for granted. So, okay, until next time, stay strong, stay connected, and keep growing.